You're listening to Sunny Side Up, a B2B podcast that brings you the juiciest insights from go-to-market leaders and practitioners.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Sunny Side Up. I'm Vabis Cooper, your host for this special Women in Tech series. Today I'm thrilled to speak with Hardeep Kaur, the Director of People at Demandbase India. With 17 plus years in HR, she's all about making things happen. Whether it's finding influencing leaders, spurring teams into action, or crafting tailored solutions, Hardeep's got it covered. She's passionate about solving challenges and works hand in hand with colleagues to drive meaningful change. In short, Hardeep is the driving force behind people-centric success at Demandbase. I'm excited to talk to you, Hardeep. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Vabis. I feel very, very humbled and excited at the same time. Happy to be chatting with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Hardeep, can you tell us about what challenges you have encountered in advocating for your career advancement and how did you overcome them?
You know what? Interestingly, for a large part of my career, I never really advocated for my career advancement, if I think about it. And if career advancement means promotion, then I never did it. Luckily, I had very supportive managers who mentored and guided me, and they helped me move ahead in my career. However, there was a phase in my career when I did face the challenge, especially when I had a male boss who got intimidated by me for whatever reasons, as I, kind of understood it. And I kind of faced resistance from him, especially because I was a female. So, and again, all this was very subtle stuff, nothing very explicit. He was a wonderful, competent leader otherwise, but somewhere I sensed that, he was uncomfortable with the fact that I was probably, I don't know, overshadowing him or whatever the case was. So I would say I get reminded of that phase of my career where things kind of looked a little uncomfortable for me. But yeah, I think what really helped was, first of all, I really had to understand the situation, because sometimes when we are in it, we're just not able to understand what's happening. But I really had to be very objective about what was happening because I realized I was failing in my communication and it was impacting my work and my persona at work and stuff. What really also helped me was talking to mentors and kind of you know designing strategies with them to see how I can be more objective, how to improve my communication style, how to involve my male manager more so that he doesn't feel intimidated. Things kind of get better between us. So I think that is one phase where I felt things didn't work the way I would have ideally imagined, and some of these things really helped.
That's really impressive. So, Hardeep, what advice would you give to someone, whether they are just starting in their career or they have like few years of experience in the industry?
So there are a few things that definitely come to my mind, and these are things that I follow and I have followed. So I'm happy to share them. I think the first one and the one that I love the most is the fact that, one should always be very authentic. We should be authentic with ourselves first. We need to understand ourselves. What are we good at? Where do we lack? Where can we improve? When do we feel insecure or jealous, or when do we feel under pressure? When do we feel low or underconfident? And all of those things, right? If we are able to acknowledge those emotions, if you're able to understand ourselves, what are our strengths, what are things that really give us that kick, I think that really helps. And I have always tried to, and that is one thing I will say, be authentic to yourself. Do what you say and say what you do. I think that is very, very, and very important aspect for me. So that's the first. The second thing I would say is, be thorough in your work. Right from day one of your job till the time you retire, I think that is so, so important. Do whatever it takes to do your job well, whether it is you have to read, you have to research, you have to reach out to people, but bring that class in what you do. I think that is what will give oneself satisfaction, I believe. And that also kind of gives us trust on ourselves, and we get that confidence that, yeah, I can really do my work well. And the third thing definitely is, it's not an easy thing to get a mentor that we can trust, but I have been blessed to have a couple of mentors, at least in my life. So find a mentor who you can reach out to when you are stuck, when you don't know what's the right way to approach things. It makes a lot of difference, whether that person is a person who's a professional colleague or somebody in your family or whoever, your friend or whoever it is. Have those one or two people you can talk to, because that is really a game changer. So,
Yeah, wow. I think you rightly pointed it's so important to be authentic with ourselves because that's where the progress starts.
yeah.
And have you ever experienced like imposter syndrome in your career and like how did you overcome that?
Oh, wow. You know what? I face this all the time. And let me tell you a very funny incident. So, I clearly remember there was one instance years ago, okay, when my manager met me during my performance review and she told me that I was getting promoted. I said, thank you. But I kept wondering, what great work did I do to get this promotion? So I realized, and this is again after a lot of reflection, I figured that I'm super critical of myself all the time. I get pleased with myself on very few occasions. And if somebody would appreciate me, I would brush it off. Of course, now I've gotten better at it after a lot of self reflection and, knowing what I do. But I've realized that it has led to me being very, very stressed about anything I do. So, yes, I completely relate with this, with the imposter syndrome. Okay, so how did I overcome it? I think the very first step is, so with me, the good part is that I know I am very super critical about myself and I beat myself up for very small thing. So the first step is to be aware. We need to know that what are we doing to ourselves? So that's step one. So, like I said, right now, when people come and talk to me or say things, anything good about me or anything, I try to first think and then respond, then just brush it off, kind of thing. And I have to constantly remind myself, that take it easy, be kind to yourself. I always kind of try and watch my self talk that I do. That is so, so important. And, I surely want to mention this point that, I believe in doing things perfectly. One of the things that adds up to all of this. So I have to constantly remind myself that, not everything has to be done perfectly. It's okay. Some things are just great being imperfect. And then I ask myself, when is good enough really good enough? Sometimes we just have to like draw a line and tell ourselves, okay, of course it can keep getting better, and who knows what that better is. So, but even today, I still don't compromise on a few things, but I'm learning to let go. And if something goes wrong, I am now, I first try to watch my reaction. I won't say I'm successful each and every time, but I try to remind myself that watch your reaction and see, is it really worth taking that much stress? So, yeah, these are some of the ways that have been working for me that I can share.
Wow, wow. I think this is such a good reminder for all of us, especially as women, that sometimes it's just important to, like stand in the chaos and just breathe. That's really nice. And what can companies implement to retain and support women throughout their careers, especially when there is progression happening into like leadership opportunities?
This is such an important question, Vabis. I think a lot of organizations are talking about this, but I would say, if there are none or very less women leaders in the company or very few women in whatever roles, I think it should ring a bell for companies. It should, and they should stop and just try and understand what is happening. And I feel commitment from senior management is the starting point before we even jump into thinking what we should do about it. Like, I know in demand base, we are very, very intentional about these things. And I feel very, very happy and blessed, to be a part of this organization. But I feel that is one thing where if there is support from the senior management, then, companies can really go a long way in supporting women and women leaders. Some of the things that I have seen that have worked are providing those mentoring opportunities. I think a lot of organizations do it, and a lot of research is out there to say how this has helped. I have seen it in demand base as well, where women have come forward to be mentors, and I see a lot of females actually taking benefit from such opportunities. So that is one thing that I definitely feel is something that organizations should think about if they are not doing it. And we all the time keep talking about biases. I think everybody knows it, but then what are we doing about it? I think there are some efforts that organizations should do on creating awareness on those biases, whether they are conscious or unconscious. I feel they are more unconscious most of the times than conscious, but it'll be good to have discussions around it, have some training around it, or let people talk about biases, again starting from the senior leadership, where people again feel comfortable talking about biases. But I think that's so important to talk about, because if I just go back to the first question you asked me, where I had a male boss, and I figured eventually when I found out he definitely had a bias against women, but then people don't understand it or realize it till it's talked about. So I think that is something very, very crucial, I feel. And then the other thing definitely is about the pay. As much as organizations talk about pay parity, I don't know how many companies actually, when they are doing their comp cycles, actually pause and see what are the pays looking like for men and women. Is there a parity? Because that sometimes also, knowingly or unknowingly, if the management or HR is not kind of encouraging managers to think or even analyze this specific aspect, it kind of gives a very strong message. So we need to be careful. How are we treating women when we are thinking about pay and any such opportunities? Again, a very, very talked about thing is about DE&I. A lot of organizations have very specific initiatives around it. And I know we at Demandbase are also doing some amazing stuff. And I also feel, to complement all of these initiatives, it is so important to actually have a DE&I strategy for each region, because it is different. What does DE&I mean in one region as opposed to another region? And it need not be something very elaborate where we are doing like five things. It's not about the number of things we do. It's about, even if there is one thing we are doing, we do it really well. What is that one thing that organizations should target to be more inclusive, to encourage more diverse thinking, to encourage women to participate, to give them that free or comfortable space to even have those conversations, right from the junior most to the senior people? Are we giving those opportunities to people? And what is that one thing or two things related to this area that we would want to focus on? I think that becomes very critical. And I'm very happy to say that, in demand base, our engagement scores around these areas are great. I think we are doing great stuff. Does it mean we cannot do more? Definitely. We are always looking at ways to, to kind of be better. So that definitely I feel is very critical. And the last thing I would see is, at least for me in my career, I have been part of organizations that invested a lot in leadership programs, some very specific to women, and some were really good programs that I attended, which were real eye openers. And they really helped me think about myself differently, inculcate some of those probably traits and qualities. And I know we invest a lot in trainings and in L&D, in demand base. So again, I'm blessed to be in this organization where we invest so much on learning. And I feel if organizations, amongst the many things that I said, if they can seriously take them up, I feel there is so much we can do to encourage women, at whatever career transition or at whatever career level they are. I think some of these things will surely help.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yes, definitely huge shout out to the L&D team at Demandbase. They're doing an amazing job. So, Hardeep, a lot of times we hear about, maintaining the work-life balance, and as women, we have to take care of the household, plus we are like working women. So, are there any challenges that you have faced when it comes to, maintaining the work-life balance, and how have you navigated through them?
Definitely, Wahab, is I would be lying if I said I didn't. Of course, it is one thing that has been there, will be there, and it's just about finding that right balance. I think one challenge is, for me, that has always been there, is the workload. And primarily because I'm a person who cannot say no. I'm learning to, and I try, but then I just like to take on work because I'm very, very passionate about what I do. So I typically try to take up things that excite me. But at the same time, I realize that I take up too many things, and the workload kind of adds that extra pressure and stress. And then I see myself working on weekends. So I try to, I try to prioritize. I try to say no. I try to stop myself from working on weekends. And again, I think this hybrid working has kind of led into not having that boundary between work time and personal time. And I found myself stuck in it, right from the pandemic times. But then, of course, I think now I kind of very intentionally try to block out my calendar to indicate when I'm available for meetings, because otherwise I was finding it really tough to get that quality time with family, being busy with meetings and work and taking on extra work and then just being busy through the day. So that has really helped me. And I have also seen that, when I have prioritized my work over my personal life, then I get the guilt. And then when I have personalized my personal life over work, again, I'm guilty. So either ways, I always keep feeling guilty. And I don't know if I found out a solution to this, but I always try to tell myself that, look, yeah, at this time I prioritized my work, but hopefully I will try to balance it off by getting some quality time the next time with my family. And then when it's the other way around, I tell myself, hey, it's okay. Yeah, you did prioritize your family, but there is no crime in that. It is the right thing to do. But at the same time, I'm sure I'm going to work on things that I'm really passionate about. So yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that guilt sometimes does get a little too real, but yeah, balancing it all out is important. So I've known that you've worked in, some male dominated industries as well. So what are the strategies that you found most effective while networking in, especially like in male dominated industries?
I have to admit that I'm very bad at networking. And especially, I'm very hesitant to reach out in like large group settings. But I have done it a little bit. I really push myself. I get invited to conferences or seminars or meetups, or there were instances when I was invited for some talks, and then I kind of found ways not to participate in it. But then I think now, off late, I've been trying to push myself to attend those, hear other people, even if I'm just a participant, just be there and listen to what different people are saying, or attend conferences and try and push myself to just go and walk up to a stranger and talk to them. I try to do that. And I think the trick in networking is always to find that common ground. I think initially I never understood it, but in the last few years, I definitely realized that finding that common ground with any person you meet definitely helps in one, striking that conversation, and two, really having a meaningful discussion and exchanging ideas or thoughts around things that we both, or whatever the group is, we resonate with or we are keen about talking. Also, again, like, I have attended conferences or whatever seminars, but then have I gone back and reached out to them later? Well, not everyone, but I think networking is about being in constant touch, whatever the frequency, but it's just not a one-time task. As I have understood, it's about being very intentional and doing it as a continuous process. So even if I met 10 people, if I'm able to be in touch with one, that is better than zero.
I think you rightly pointed, networking is not a one time thing. It's something that you have got to do it like continuously. And sometimes just finding that link between you and the other person is like a great icebreaker. So, yeah. And do you have like any woman you would like to give a shout out to on this podcast?
I would definitely, one would be my mother. Of course, people listening to this wouldn't know her, but it's just a very short answer to this, because I think she embodies a lot of the values that I relate to. And I have seen her really take up those challenges of life and come out strong. And I think a lot of my character is shaped out of my mother, of course, from my father as well. But I surely, hats off to my mom. And in the corporate setup, I would specifically like to mention in Demandbase, I would like to give a huge shout out to Deepthi. She heads India operations and my very wonderful colleague. And I think she is an amazing leader, embodies a lot of amazing values. She's a great mentor. She knows how to celebrate successes. She knows how to give you the feedback that will really push you to think differently. So I would love to give a shout out to Deepthi as well.
Wow. Yeah, true. Actually, moms are definitely the best for sure. And yeah, Deepti is fantastic. Thank you so much, Hardeep, for coming to our podcast and sharing these amazing insights with us. I'm sure our users will find them so useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wabis. I truly appreciate your questions. Actually took me down memory lane, and I really had a good time really digging into my memory and thinking. But thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity, and it was just lovely chatting with you, Wabis.
Today's episode is made possible by Demandbase. Demandbase is smarter GTM for B2B brands to help marketing and sales teams spot the juiciest opportunities earlier and progress them faster. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Sunny Side Up. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review us and subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube and Demandbase TV.